told me he had a surprise guest. I was like, who could that be? And when he told me who it was, it warmed my heart. We have Mayor Villaraigosa here today. And, you know, I grew up listening to his voice on Fox 11 or ABC or whatever the news channel was. And, you know, it was certainly a different time back then, and I fondly recall those days. I cannot tell you, Mayor, I'm so happy to have you here. I appreciate you coming and patronizing our event. Please, can you come up and say the first words?
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction. Were you in kindergarten when that happened? Can't tell you the number of times people come up to me and say, do you remember me? And they're late 40s, and I'll say, you know, honestly, I don't remember you. And they'll say, you went to my grammar school 30 years ago. Shows you how old I am. And with that age comes the following. You know, this issue of public safety, and when you talk about gun violence, public health, is an issue that is without question something that's on everybody's mind. I think it's an indication, your attendance today is an indication of that. But I want to take you back for a second, because in 2005, LA was the most dangerous big city in America. I want to remind you of that. The most dangerous, most violent big city in America. More violent than Chicago, yes. It was the most violent city in the country. And I tell people, by the time we were gone, by the time I finished, we were, along with New York, the second safest big city in the country. Well, thank you. But I want to give you a context for all of this. You know, back then, we incarcerated, and still do today, more people than anywhere in the world. I'm going to say it again. We incarcerate more people than anywhere in the world. And so early on, I understood we need to get more police officers in this town. And we grew the police department to 10,000 strong, grew it by 1,000 officers. But we didn't just do that. We invested in prevention and intervention programs. We dramatically expanded after-school programs. We focused on summer youth jobs to give young people alternatives to, as I used to say, still in your hubcaps. We did a broad cross-section of things to address the crime phenomena of the time. And it worked. So, let me just say this. First of all, I have a great deal of respect for anyone willing to put their hat in the ring, willing to say, I stand up and I'm going to put my name on the ballot and ask for your support. So I have a great deal of support for all of you. But anybody who gives you simple solutions, throw them out. Because I'm going to tell you, as someone who was in this town, helped to unite the city to take on the issue of crime and safety. There are no simple solutions, everybody. There are only tough, complex solutions, and they have to be varied. So when you hear, oh, just lock them up, yeah, good luck with that. It's not going to work. It never has. What works is thoughtful solutions. I used to say, it's nice to talk tough on crime, but what's important is that we be smart about crime, that we have a broad cross-section of tools in the toolbox to address that. I understood that, maybe because I had been around, because I had grown up in this town and lived through the 90s when LA was even more dangerous than it was in 2005. Had more than 1,000 homicides back then. And so despite that 49% drop in crime, what we understood was we need to do a lot of different things. And so as you hear the candidates today, think about that, about the notion that, yes, we want public safety, But criminal justice reform is also important. But if something's not working, then maybe we ought to throw it out. If something's not working, maybe we ought to retool and try something else. And so whether you're on this side or that side of the ledger, when you're blinded by ideology, when you don't want to look at all sides, you usually miss the forest for the trees. So I wanted to be here to thank the candidates for having the courage and the willingness and the commitment to this town to run, but also to encourage you to share a balanced approach to how we address the issue of crime and safety and criminal justice reform in this town. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Always nice to hear your voice.
When you were in kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we want to go ahead and switch over. The whole idea was to keep the administrative stuff kind of brief and move over to the candidates, which is what we're going to do right now. Let's go ahead and introduce the candidates to the stage. Let's please start with the incumbent, District Attorney Gascon. Can you please join us on the stage? One thing I just want to point out here, District Attorney Gascon isn't the incumbent. Everyone here on this stage is going for his chair. He's already got the job. And nonetheless, he joined us here tonight to inform the voters, and I think this is just a wonderful exemplar of democracy. I think we're all very lucky to be here tonight. Thank you. If I could please invite the remainder of the district attorney candidates to join us on the stage, and if I can have the people remove the podium for the stage so we can start the actual event. Thank you, everyone. Let me help you with this. Thank you.
What are you guys? Alex Michelson on there, that's good. Here you go, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Hey, get next.
Full house.
Which newspaper do you want? For the editor.
Okay, wonderful. Now that we have all the candidates up the stage, I want to go ahead and introduce our monitors for this evening. Alex Michelson from Fox 11 News, thank you for being here with us. And Nina Hojat, who is a criminal defense attorney and the vice president of the CCBA. She's gracing us here tonight as a co-moderator. Alex, all you, thank you.
Take this one. You almost fell off. Okay. I know if I fall off, the mayor is here to catch me. Got to get him on the news tonight. Good. Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Michelson. I anchor the news on Fox 11 every night at 5, 6, and 10 o'clock and host a statewide political show called The Issue Is, which I hope you guys will watch. This is on Friday nights at 10:30. We've had most of these candidates on our 6 o'clock news, which is actually happening right now, which we may dip into live as well. And it's really great that you're all here to listen. Here's my ask of all of you, is that this is about all these people that have thrown their hat in the ring. You guys haven't. So let's hear from them. And if you want to be on the stage, you should run next time, and then we'll get your take on it. We've invited everybody that's running. Everybody's getting a fair chance to talk tonight. So let's not do, boos and hisses and all the rest of that stuff. If honestly, it's best if we really don't even do clapping. It's best if we just have an opportunity to listen to everybody, because it's very rare to get all these people in one place, and the more we do of that, the less we get a chance to actually hear them and get to make up your mind. And I'm just curious for all of them to know too, from a raise of hands, who's undecided in this race? We've got okay. And who's made up their mind?
Okay, and who thinks that they've made up their mind, but maybe if they hear something really great tonight, they are persuadable? A few people. Okay, there we go. All right. So now you guys know who you really got to talk to tonight. It is great to see everybody here tonight. I think they did the order based off of the fundraising number, so that's where this particular order came from. And you can see Mr. Hockman's raised a lot of money, which is why you see him on TV a lot these days. The recent USC poll showed that 64% of people don't know who they want to support. So I think the best way to start this is just to give everybody a chance to do a brief introduction of them, 30 seconds, a minute long introduction of why you want this job and a little bit about who you are. And Mr. Hockman, let's start with you.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you for inviting me tonight. I think that we have seen over the last 3 years under DA George Gascon the golden age of criminals, where 2/3 of Los Angelenos actually fear for their safety and feel less safe tonight than they did when he took office. What I will bring is 34 years of criminal justice experience as a federal prosecutor, a U.S. Assistant Attorney General appointed by the President and unanimously confirmed by the U.S. Senate. I've been the president of the LA City Ethics Commission, a defense attorney, and the co-founder of the LA Sheriff's Foundation. I can bring criminal justice experience and leadership experience and independence to get politics out of the DA's office and restore our safety and hold criminals accountable again.
Mr. Chemerinsky.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Chemerinsky. I grew up here in Los Angeles, and I moved back after law school. My wife and I are raising our 3 young kids here in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is personal to me, is a place I love, and I want my kids to love as much as I do. I've spent the last 9.5 years as a federal prosecutor, an assistant United States attorney, focusing mostly on violent and organized crime cases. I rose to be the chief of the violent and organized crime section at the United States Attorney's Office. I left that position to run for district attorney. I'm now running on 3 major platforms or pillars. The first is public safety. My number 1 priority will be public safety. Second, I also do believe in effective criminal justice reform, and I believe I can be a better and more effective reformer than our current district attorney. And third, I'm running to provide new leadership and accountability for the district attorney's office. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here with you all.
Thank you. Mr. John Atami.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm running for my kids. I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I want them to be safe. I'm running for your kids. I want to make sure your children are safe. And I'm running for all of you to make sure you are safe. I'm running for my wife, who's a 16-year veteran in the Sheriff's Department, and she's the mother of my children. And I want her to come home, and I want to make sure that she's safe. We have a community where most of us don't feel safe anymore. We don't feel safe when we walk out to our car at night and we go into our car. We don't feel safe when we're walking to the beach or walking our kids to school. We don't feel safe when we're walking our dog, or if we wear a watch or jewelry. We don't feel safe when we go to a restaurant because we're afraid somebody may commit a hate crime against us. We don't feel safe in our homes. We're afraid somebody's going to come and burglarize our homes. We have a feeling of unsafety here in Los Angeles, and everybody feels it. Think about 5 years ago. We did not feel that way. And so I'm running for all of you. I spent almost 18 years as a prosecutor in the district attorney's office. For the last 7 years, I fight for abused, neglected, and murdered children. I've been fighting George Gascon for the last 3 years. I feel that he has made all of us unsafe. And I'm also fighting for the victims, survivors, and for surviving family members who feel completely abandoned by the district attorney. The DA should make sure all of us are safe, should fight for victims and survivors and their families, make sure that they're prosecuting crime, make sure people are held accountable and responsible for those crimes, and make sure that if we can help people, we do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Siddall.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Mr. Mayor, when you were giving the introduction, I had 2 thoughts. First of all, I was thinking, is he running for governor? My second thought was, we are speaking the same language. I really do believe that this is a transformative election. I believe I represent a new generation of prosecutors. one, that are not stuck in the past, who want to continue on failed policies that have not worked, but one that also recognizes that the current path that we're taking is not working, that we cannot afford to, as the LA Times put it, stay in place with George Gascon. We can't stay in place with George Gascon, and we can't stay in place with anyone who is like George Gascon. So what I propose is a modernization of the district attorney's office. What I propose is a new step forward. And this step forward, I think, is embraced by the majority of prosecutors in my office. I had the honor of receiving the endorsements of my association, the Association of Deputy District Attorneys, and I think the reason why they endorse me is this. First of all, in terms of modernization, what we're going to do is create a unit within the office that is going to focus in on the most dangerous criminals and also those people who are the drivers of crime. Because what we know is that most crime is caused by a small percentage of individuals. Second, and this has been something that has been sorely lacking for decades, we need to build up the infrastructure of our mental health institutions so that when we put people in diversion programs, they can actually get the treatment that they need, and they can also get in a secure facility so that they get proper treatment without interfering with public safety. And the third is addressing the homeless issue. Some people think that we have no role in it, in both extremes. I think we could actually have a very proactive role in that. And that is the establishment of homeless courts modeled after the Redondo Beach City Attorney's Office, so that people get services from the very beginning, basic services like they get identification cards, and then they have wraparound services from mental health to drug addiction to supportive housing, and eventually lead to permanent housing. These are the ways that we can modernize this office. These are the ways that we could actually move forward and not just look backwards.
Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, are you running for governor? The no answer is telling. Okay, we're going to keep moving to the district attorney. And by the way, if we all can try to keep these brief, I know I'm trying to give you guys latitude, especially on this first question. We don't have sort of time limits, is what the organizers didn't want us to do, the minute-long thing, to try to give people more space. But that means that we all just sort of respect each other and don't go over too much. All right, the district attorney, George Gascon.
Well, first of all, thank you and good evening. This is really a wonderful reflection of democracy at work. And the fact that you're taking valuable time from your evening to be here is meaningful, right? The fact that we have all these people here running for office is meaningful too, because it indicates that there are a lot of people that care about this job, as I do. You know, the LA Times said it best. You know, the LA Times interviewed each of us extensively, and then they went out and did fact checking. And they actually pointed out some of the inconsistencies. 60%, there were about 350 some people in the office that voted in office of about 2,100. But then we find out that actually many people were excluded from having the possibility of voting. So listen, again, I go back to, this is a very contested race, and I understand that there are a lot of hard feelings, but I think that when you look at reality and what we are today, it's a very different place than what we were in December of 2020.
Mr. Sedon, since you were name checked, why don't you, what's your response to that?
Well, so, look, I've had the
Name
privilege...
check me, please.
What?
Name check me, please.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
I've had the privilege of representing the line prosecutors in my office for 10 years. When George Gascon, look, I was the first one in the stage to actively campaign against him when he was running against Jackie Lacey. I was very active on the Lacey campaign. Our union was very much against him. There's no secret about that. But the moment he won, the moment Miss Lacey conceded, I reached out to his political allies and tried to heal that wound, to make sure that the office continued to function for the benefit of the people. and we tried to have a meeting. It was delayed, and eventually we did have a meeting. And Mr. Gascon spent 4.5 minutes in that meeting. And then on December the 7th of 2020, he unleashed a series of directives that not one person that was a career veteran prosecutor in our office was a part of in terms of the dialogue. And then on top of that all, he brought in political allies into the office, into key positions to undermine the very civil service protections that are necessary for a civil government in this country.
All right, we're going to keep moving with the introductions, Judge. All right, real quick, because we could do this with so many people.
We'll be here all day.
Okay, Judge, I'm sorry, and then, Judge.
Thank you.
Seated amongst the audience are many defense attorneys and prosecutors. They have appeared in my court over the last 18 and a half years. I don't want to toot my horn, but if you have an opportunity when this function is over, ask those people, what type of treatment have they received and their clients received during my tenure as a judge? Because that independent assessment, I think, is far more valuable than me giving you some canned speech. I'd like to also say, Mayor Villaraigosa indicated that there are no simple solutions. Truer words could not have been spoken tonight. Before I became an attorney, I was a high school teacher in South Los Angeles for 17 years. I know what it takes to steer a young person into a positive, constructive life. I've taught not only those who go to Yale and MIT, but I taught rolling 60 gang members at continuation schools. Fast forward, 13 years ago, I founded the Skid Row Running Club. This morning, where was I at 4 a.m.? At the corner of 6th and San Pedro. I have worked with recovering addicts and homeless individuals 3 days a week for the last 13 years. There are no simple solutions. To get a person into long-term sobriety, to get a young person out of a gang and leading a constructive life requires dedicated, consistent effort and a long-term commitment to that human being. I get it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Now, Judge Saleto.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been a longtime member of the Criminal Courts Bar Association. It's a privilege to be with you here tonight. I am not going to turn this into the George Gascon show like so many of these candidate forum and debates turn into. I'm hoping that you will realize that the reason there's so many of us up here tonight is because everyone in this room agrees on a couple of things. Number one, we are not safer now than we were 3 years ago when he was elected into the office. And number two, many people in this room, including all of these candidates except himself, thinks that he needs to go. Well, as a domestic violence survivor, I received a traumatic brain injury when I was 19 years old. When I was 21, I had to have brain surgery for a blood clot on the brain. That started my journey to work to advocate on behalf of victims of violent and serious crimes. As many of you probably have known my tired story, I worked as a legal secretary and I typed my way through college and law school. I went to law school at night and on the weekends. I was hired as a law clerk in 1989. In 1991, I passed the bar the first time and I had a very successful, prestigious career in the district attorney's office. It was mentioned the gang murders in 1991 and 1992. I was in the hardcore gang unit at that time. I tried many of those cases. I spent 26 years as a prosecutor, and 7 years ago, I ran for Superior Court judge. I'm the only other candidate on this podium other than Mr. Gascon. I've used his name, so I'll probably get to respond. That ran a countywide successful election. I'm at the ground zero every single day of everything that's wrong with his policies. For the last 3.5 years, I've been in the Edelman Children's Court after leaving criminal court, where I see what's happening with children, families, every single day in the foster care system because of the abuse, the homelessness, the domestic violence, the substance abuse, and the crime. We are not safer than we were 3 years ago, which is why I have stepped down from the bench on an unpaid leave of absence to step up for each and every one of you. So thank you for allowing me to participate tonight.
Thank you. Judge Milton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Milton. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Born in Pasadena, but my parents moved to Indiana when I was an infant. I was raised in a Judeo-Christian family, raised in a Jewish community, seders, synagogues, all those kinds of things. And however, in Indiana during the 60s and 70s, the country was racially tense. I suffered those indignities during that time, but those experiences, being raised in a Judeo-Christian family, and the racial tension, they made me a strong man, a principled man, a good man. I do not tolerate injustices. And after leaving Indiana, I returned to California. I started my career in the DA's office. I have been a lawyer for 45 years. I'm the most experienced candidate here. 24 years as a Superior Court judge and 12 years as a prosecutor. I tried some of the most difficult cases you can try in any jurisdiction, state or federal, in this entire country. I began the Crimes Against Police Officer Section, the Career Criminal Division, the Hardcore Gang Division, and I supervised the Downey Office of the DA. I wrote 2 death penalty bills. As a prosecutor, I obtained 2 death verdicts. As a judge, I sentenced an individual to death. I don't say these things in a celebratory way. It's just the breadth of my experience and how serious I treat the law. I adhere to the law. Number 1 on my platform, if you go to dmiltonforda.com, you will see what? Hate crimes. I'm sensitive to that subject. What does that mean? That means that any crime that's motivated because of your race, your religion, your gender. October 7th, it just did something to me. And I stand with Israel 100% in its right to exercise self-defense and to pursue its attackers until those attackers are no longer a threat. That's what I stand for. I'm Republican, but I'm not by any stretch of the imagination extreme. You know what? That actor Matthew McConaughey said it best. There are extremes on the right, there are extremes on the left. They're causing chaos in this country. Most of the people want to be somewhere in the middle. Reasonableness. A little to the right, some in the middle, and some a little to the left. And he observed that those people who are on the extremes, they have the mics, and we've got to take those mics from them. This is what I'm about, public protection. I won't let you down if I'm the district attorney. I won't fool you and change my candidacy from Republican to anything else. If this is what you see, I am transparent. I will never mislead you, and I will get that office back to its core mission, which is public safety. Thank you
very much. See you in.
Alex, do I get points if I keep to 30 seconds like you requested?
Please. Yes. Bonus points.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Lloyd Bobcat Masson. I'm a cold case prosecutor with the largest county in the United States. And the reason I jumped into this race was because I didn't hear anybody saying what I wanted to hear as an LA County resident. And that's this. As a DA, I'm going to tell criminals directly that playtime is over. I absolutely promise and committed to dropping the hammer on all property-related offenses, including robbery, and also hate crimes. I'm the only candidate up here that's actually independent and truly independent. I've never been affiliated with any political party whatsoever, and that's what sets me apart. I want to put politics last and LA first. As a fourth generation Angelino, I love this city. I love every different neighborhood that makes up the county, and I'm committed to cleaning this place up using the tactics that the mayor mentioned, not just old school policies, but the best technology that we can use to bring this place, get it ready for the Olympics so it's clean, and we're not going to get a bunch of French tourists stuck here that aren't able to get home because their cars got stolen. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for keeping it brief.
Bonus points for keeping it brief, right?
I'll be brief too, but I'm going to stand so I'm not throwing my back to half the audience. Yes, I guess I've raised the least amount of money, but you can't buy this election. As long as I get a fair shake, get invited to events like this, thank you very much for inviting me, get on your show possibly, maybe I'll be one of the candidates that's invited on the show. I can win this election. Yes, Mr. Hockman has raised the most money, but, well, the polls vary. Anyway, so I'm the only criminal defense attorney that is running. Thank you. I'm the only candidate that is in the courtrooms every single day all over the county, and I see what's really happening. Now, actually, I disagree with Ms. Archuleta because I didn't say we're less safe now. We're actually more safe now than we were 3 years ago because violent crime, rapes, and murders are down. And we can't give the credit or the blame to Mr. Gascon, and the truth is we're safer. Now, theft crimes have gone up, and the reason they've gone up, in my opinion, is because the fearmongers have misled people into thinking that, oh, you can just go into a store and take whatever you want, and Gascon won't do anything. Well, that's not true. Anyone who's arrested for going to a store and taking something, they're charged. I get these cases all the time. It's a myth. Okay, well, I'm in the courtrooms every day, and I see so many cases I get are like this, and they're charged as felonies because it doesn't take long to get $950. So the money doesn't buy what it used to. Anyway, I see his mic's up, but I want to thank you. I am the only candidate. I am the most progressive candidate. I'm the only candidate endorsed by two political parties, the Green Party and the Peace and Freedom Party. And I believe the reason I'm not endorsed by the LA Times and some progressive things, I think Mr. Gascon has a better chance of winning. At this point, he probably does. He's going to be in the top two. Now, I'm going to be another top two because all these guys who are mass incarcerators, they all want to be in favor of more mass incarceration than Gascon. And Gascon, in my opinion, is a mass incarcerator because his directives are awesome. I just reread them, but they don't get implemented. His line deputies ignore them. Yeah, people are here, they know, because they're in courts too. He files enhancements. We're not resentencing. He files against enhancements being struck. This is even gang enhancements. Now, he does things. Some things he's done, he doesn't seek the death penalty, either do I. And we're one of the few candidates that don't. And it's just, he says that they won't seek body attachments. The reason I ran is the straw that broke the camel's back is I'm also the only candidate that actually represents victims. The DA is supposed to represent the people. I represent the victims. And one of my victim clients missed one court date to testify. Gascon's office had him arrested, sought $100,000 bail on this guy, and convinced the judge to do it. This guy had to borrow and beg to get out of jail. The money was supposed to go to his 5-year-old daughter's Christmas presents. And this is the kind of thing I deal with every single day. Vindictive prosecutions to punish people for exercising the right to go to trial. And I'll leave it at that. I'm sure you guys have had enough.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody got their word in. So I'm told that Nina is here to be the enforcer. She's here to body blow anybody that's given a hard time. So now people have, right? And so the message going forward is let's keep it a little tighter. Everybody got to get out their stuff. And now let's really try to focus on answering the questions as much as we can and try to be quick so that we get more stuff out. Most of us were part of a debate for the LA Magazine a few weeks ago. And one of the things I was thinking when watching all of you during that I didn't get to ask as a question because we just ran out of time, was all of you, like Ms. Archuleta said, are here because you think that George Gascon shouldn't be the one. Most of the polls seem to suggest that George Gascon is going to probably be in the top two, if nothing else for name ID, but also because there is a lot of people here that agree with him. So that means there's probably one spot left. And most of you want to be that one person to essentially get him out of office. Let's start here and we'll go down the line since we started with you last time. Why are you, Mr. Chemerinsky, compared to everybody here, the most electable, the person who is most likely, if you're on that one-on-one matchup with Mr. Gascon, the one that's actually going to beat him?
Great. I think it should be really clear that I'm the most electable and most viable candidate on this stage. As a lifelong Democrat, I'm exactly the opposite of who George Gascon wants to face. George Gascon's best chance of getting reelected is to run against someone he could paint as a right-winger. And the truth is that many of the people on this stage, to my right and to my left, can be painted as a right-winger. He can't paint me that way. As I said, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I worked for Senator Biden while in law school. I worked on the Obama campaign also while in law school. I clerked for 2 federal judges who are both Democrats. As I said, I believe in criminal justice reform, but I'm also a prosecutor. I've been endorsed. I'm the only challenger who's been endorsed by Democratic clubs. I've also been endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. I've been endorsed by a broad coalition of elected and former elected officials, including the city attorney, Heidi Feldstein-Soto, former state senator, Bob Hertzberg, city council member, Bob Blumenfield, 3 former Congress members, Henry Waxman being one of them, who used to represent this area, have all endorsed my campaign. This is the type of campaign that makes me the most electable and the greatest challenger to George Gascon.
Mr. Tommy.
I think we're first assuming that George Gascon is going to be one of the two.
Right.
And so I'm going to tell you this, I'm running in this primary, I'm running to win. Thank you. We're polling number 2, and we're running this primary to win. We're talking to the voters about actually winning. So I don't think you should assume that George Gascon is going to be one of the two, because many people don't want him to be one of the two. And these people are out here voting every single day. So I was raised poor by a single mom. I was abused as a child. I also was a victim of a parental kidnapping. I'm a product of the Boys and Girls Club by a single mom who was working. I've also been in trouble, and I joined the Army. And I spent 7 years in the United States Army, and it turned my life around. I think too many people, when we talk about public safety, talk about politics. Jackie Lacey was a lifelong Democrat, and nobody up here is Jackie Lacey, and George Gascon beat her. And so I think people need to think about that, and think about the reason why that happened. And so when George Gascon says, I'm a Democrat running for DA, I'm Jonathan Atami, DA running for all of you. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. Everybody deserves public safety, no matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or no party preference. And we're running to bring public safety to everyone here in Los Angeles. People feel unsafe. And that's why I'm running for DA, and that's why I believe that I'm going to beat whoever is the other person who makes it past this primary. Thank you.
Mr. Siddall, why are you the most electable choice?
So I believe that George Gascon will be the one of the top 2. And I also have nothing in my closet to paint me as a right-winger or a MAGA guy or anything like that whatsoever. So I don't have that baggage like other people may have it on the stage. And I think it's the power of my ideas. I think that what Angelenos want is they want a different approach in terms of public safety. They do not want to go backwards. I'm the only candidate on this stage that actually has an actionable plan to move this county forward, that actually looks at what are the issues in terms of violence, how do you reduce violence, our longstanding mental health crisis, and our issues with homelessness. I have an actionable plan. When that plan is actually polled, it is extremely successful, and it actually beats George Gascon in the general election. And so that's why I should be the one who goes up against him, because there's really nothing he can say to attack me.
Mr. Gascon, who do you want to run against the most? No, ask a great question, you answer it. What do you think?
You think I'm going to jump in the middle of that fight? Oh, no.
Now, why are you the most electable?
Why am I the most electable? Look, I think if you go on the record, okay, I think if we move away from the rhetoric, I think if we move away from the misinformation that the LA Times very clearly researched and put it out there, I think if you look at what is going on in the county today, if you look at what is happening in the office as we are moving into a 21st century prosecutorial office, I think you will agree that we're on the right path. Now, that is not to say that there's not things that we need to continue to work on. As a nation, we have a problem with fentanyl. As a nation, we have a problem with gun violence. As a nation, we continue to have a problem that is increasing every day with fake news and bad information that is actually harming our communities. And unless we all come together, it really doesn't matter whether you're on the right or the left, it really matters about how do we approach, how do we come together in order to make our communities safer. And if that is the goal, I think you would find me to be the most electable candidate.
All right, Mr. McKinney, why are you the one?
Well, I think you can take this picture right here, because this is the general election matchup for 2024. And I am the most electable because I have a profile that appeals to the broadest spectrum of voters. Among my support are Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and progressives. You mentioned a plebiscite that was taken in the DA's office recently, and basically that was a vote that over 500 deputy DAs had an opportunity to vote in. I won the plebiscite where current deputy DAs voted to have me be the next district attorney by 64.7%. The second closest person was 50 points behind. Mr. Gascon received 6 votes in that plebiscite. I am the most electable, and I am George Gascon's worst nightmare because I cut into the heart of his support. I have endorsements from law enforcement agencies. I have an endorsement from an organization that represents the most powerful African-American civic and business leaders in Los Angeles County. And I'm the only other candidate here with a major labor endorsement from AFSCME 3090, which represents thousands of city workers. So, Alex, I do believe as a lifelong Democrat, and I appreciate that Mr. Chemerinsky is a lifelong Democrat, but he's rather young, and has only been a lawyer for 12 years. I've been a deputy district attorney for 25 years in the very organization that I'm seeking to lead. Everyone to my right, other than Mr. Chemerinsky, is a former Republican. Some have run for office as a conservative Republican. And think what you want, the DA's office is a nonpartisan office, but elective office is 110% partisan. And if you run for office as a former Republican who ran for office as a Republican, you won't just be running against Mr. Gascon, you'll be running against the Democratic Party itself, and you will lose.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is think about this election as chess, not checkers. You need to elect a person that you like, who you believe is qualified, who you believe has character, who you believe has courage, who you believe has the support of the men and women in the office who will lead the office, and that's why I'm the most elected.
Thank you, John. Ms. Ramirez.
Yes, so it's nice, everybody has their cheering section here, everybody has their endorsements, some people have more money than some of us, but let's get really to the heart and matter of this, and that is that we have to appeal to the LA County voters. And why am I the most electable? Because I represent the LA County voters in Los Angeles County. Lifelong Democrat, a woman, a Latina. I have my base of support in that. And we are going to get the votes that we need within that base of support to be in the top two. And that's what we have to think about, because although I respect that the plebiscite voted for John McKinney, it was only a little over 200 DAs that actually voted in that plebiscite. What was it? I don't want to mistake.
367.
Thank you. 367 out of about 800 DAs. Does that reflect LA County voters? No, it does not. And so we have to make sure that the person that is elected to run against Mr. Gascon in November, because I believe he is going to be there in November, is going to appeal to LA County voters. And I am that person.
Thank you, Judge.
I am not your traditional candidate. And I think the voters are ready to have someone that is best described in that manner. For 11 years as a prosecutor, for 18 and a half years as a judge, I have never had a conviction reversed on appeal. Never. And the attorneys in this room know what that represents. I'd like to also indicate in my work on Skid Row, am featured in a full-length documentary. It was entered into 25 film festivals around the world. It won Best Documentary or Fan Favorite in 21 out of the 25 film festivals. Between March and November, you can best believe that there's going to be a heck of a lot more coverage of this race than there has been up to this point. And there is an hour-and-a-half documentary that reveals, and it's on Amazon Prime, Skid Row Marathon. Watch it. The voters of Los Angeles are going to be acquainted with who Craig Mitchell is. And I think they're going to affirm who I am and what I stand for.
Thank you very much. Judge.
Can you remind me one more time what the question is? Because for some reason I haven't seemed to have heard the answer to the question, Alex. Can you ask me again?
The question is, why are you the most electable, the person most likely, to your premise, defeat the district attorney?
Well, in my courtroom with the answers I've had, I would have had a motion to strike for non-responsive. I'm the most electable, ladies and gentlemen, because the incumbent is polling at 15%. That has been consistent for several months now. 65% of the population is undecided. We all have polled better in this poll and that poll and that poll and this poll. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it's the voters of LA County that are going to decide. The Board of Supervisors are women. The mayor of the city of Los Angeles is a woman. The city attorney for the city of Los Angeles is a woman. I love men. I have a husband, a son, a father, and many male friends. But for some reason, it seems to me that the women are sort of stepping up and we're being given our opportunity to change the course and the narrative of local, statewide. I just left the office 7 years ago. I still have a lot of friends in there, and frankly, many of them are clamoring for me to come back and be their leader. And I have a ballot designation that has inherent credibility, whether you like the way I ruled in your cases or not, I'm sorry. But I'm a judge of the Superior Court, and I earned that title. I was not anointed or appointed. I earned that because the people elected me to that position. So if you want to ask me why I think I'm the most selectable, that would be my answer, and hopefully Judge Mitchell wouldn't strike it for being non-responsive, or Judge Milton.
Thank you. Judge Milton, have your time.
Well, I believe I'm the most electable. Once the people realize that once I become district attorney, I will ask Judge Mitchell or Judge Archuleta to be my chief deputy. Seriously, folks, there's no question. I'm the most experienced lawyer judge here. At 45 years as a lawyer, none of the candidates here have ever worked in civil practice. After my criminal assignment, I went into civil. I've handled medical malpractice, legal malpractice, all the professional malpractice you can, catastrophic personal injury. I'm a real estate broker, so I do tons of real estate type cases and construction defects and all those kinds of things. And I was a supervisor at the state bar, and I managed deputy trial counsel. We prosecuted errant lawyers. Don't you think a lawyer, the district attorney, ought to know something about that? Don't you think? Don't you think that makes sense to have a district? And more importantly than that, what about the serious cases that I've tried in the criminal division? No one has had that experience. A district attorney ought to know how to make those decisions in those capital cases. Even though there's a moratorium, the district attorney has to consider it because it's the law, and I will follow the law no matter what.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Let me just step in here real quick, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break at 7:30, but before we do, I just want to let you know if we can go for a few more minutes, and then we're going to grab some Q&A from the audience. So let's let them finish up, and we'll move over to the Q&A section before the break.
Okay.
Alex, I think the good thing is that 7 of the 11 challenges to Gascon can probably beat him in a direct one-to-one runoff. That said, the reason I think I'm the most electable is because I got a nickname Bobcat, and I earned that by being tenacious and feisty in court. And number 2 is my heart's in the exact right spot. As a fourth-generation Angelino, what I care about is getting this city ready for the Olympics and making it safe for everybody. And that's what we need. We need somebody that's apolitical. I'm the only candidate up here that's never been affiliated with any political party whatsoever. And that's what law enforcement should be, is completely accountable just to the people. And it's going to fight for the people. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think I've got a winning message. And that's why I think I'm the most electable.
So you're anti-politics but pro-Bobcats.
I got it.
It's that simple, Alex. What do you think is going to happen if you put a Bobcat in office? It's going to scratch this crime out, and it's going to take care of it. And that's a simple message the voters can relate to.
Thank you very much.
Well, if you're a Bobcat, you're going to love me because I'm an animal rights attorney. I externed at the Animal Protection Unit. I'm endorsed by the founder of the Animal Protection Unit, the first of its kind in the nation. I represent pro bono animal rights activists protecting their First Amendment rights. But why am I the most electable? And I want to change what I was saying earlier. Now I think about it, there isn't going to be a November election. I'm going to get over 50% of the vote. If I get a platform like today and actually get on the news and not people trying to silence my message, the people of LA are progressive. This is a progressive county. You know, two candidates won state or countywide elections. I won 2 statewide elections. And what do I mean by that? I ran for governor. I knew I wasn't going to win the governorship, but my platform was to beat the recall. We beat the recall. I won that election, whether it's how much of it you can give me credit for. And then I ran for Attorney General. Okay. And again, I knew I wasn't going to beat Rob Bonta. Mr. Hoffman, I guess, thought he could. But in LA County, I got 100 to 3,000 votes. I have a lot of friends in this county, high places, low places out here, and I spent not a dime on that campaign. Mr. Hoffman spent $2.7 million, and I wasn't trying to win the election. I was trying to get more than 2% of the vote so the Green Party could stay on the ballot for 4 more years. Now, obviously, I represent more than the Green Party because if I only represent the Green Party, there's no way I get elected.
Thank you very much. And the one person who hasn't gotten to answer this is Mr. Hochman, and it was clear by, maybe we can move on to the mics down here, sorry, that Mr. McKinney was referencing you and the fact that you ran for Attorney General as a Republican, and this thought that if, say, you're in a matchup with George Gascon, there's going to be ads that say Republican Nathan Hochman, and try to tie you to Donald Trump and everything else. What happens if that happens? What's your argument on why you're the most electable?
So, Alex, let me tell you why I can and will beat George Gascon in the general election. So, the reason I'm sitting in this chair is that I've been able to raise the most amount of money, and every one of these candidates have gone out to try and get as many people excited about their campaign. And I have gotten well over 1,400 people excited about the campaign. That enthusiasm, and here's the key part, is not just from Republicans. Half my money comes from Democrats and independents. When I ran as a moderate Republican, not a conservative Republican, but a moderate Republican, 40% of my money and 40% of my votes here in Los Angeles County, I got over 758,000 votes. 40% of those were for Democrats and independents. My message is a unifying, common sense message because I reject the pendulum swing of extreme policies like Mayor Villaraigosa was talking about. I reject mass incarceration blanket policies, but I also reject George Gascon's decarceration policies. I believe in something I call the hard middle. The hard middle requires it's hard because it actually requires experience. Mr. Gascon has no experience personally prosecuting a case in his entire life. He's never defended a criminal case in his entire life. But I bring 34 years of prosecutorial and defense experience to this calculation that requires us to look at the crime, the criminal, and the impact on the victim to put the true threats to public safety in jail and the ones who aren't, give them a chance for community service. But here's the key. Mr. Gascon, when I get into the general election, there's already been a tally amongst the people on this stage. And they said, if any one of us gets through and you're on the other side, will you support that person? And the answer was yes. So if Mr. Gascon gets through with, let's say, 25 or 30%, on March 6th, the day after the election, Nathan Hochman will have a 70-30 advantage. And it will be my election to lose, and I will not lose it. And let me just tell you very quickly, because I didn't get to speak earlier at length, how I will beat George Gascon. I will be able to raise the funds necessary so I'll go toe-to-toe with him on fundraising. Jackie Lacey got outspent by millions. I sit in this chair because I will not. And then I will put his record on trial. The jurors will be the voters. And they're going to ask themselves, do I want 4 more years of living in fear? Not a perception, but a reality. George Gascon's policies have created that reality for the voters here. And they will actually vote, not on party affiliation, because quite candidly, criminals don't ask your party affiliation when they rob you. They will actually vote on who is going to keep them safe. And my unifying message, my ability to raise money, my ability to bring these people together is why, Mr. Gascon, on November 5th, when the election tally is counted, I will be the next district attorney, and you will come in second place.
Mr. Chemerinsky, I saw you nodding your head when you said that he said that everybody would endorse him over Gascon. If it's the two of them, are you endorsing Gascon?
I'm not sure what I'm going to do in that situation. I think it would be 2 really bad choices, to be honest.
Okay. I know you want to do Q&A. Yeah.
Let's do some Q&A real quick from the audience. I've spoken to some people who have interest in raising their hands. Ma'am, can I get your name first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shiva.
Okay. Just want to point out, Shiva is wearing a shirt that says John Hatemi for District Attorney. Just to put that out there. Shiva, what's your question?
You're an undecided voter, is what we're saying.
I'm very decided because many of us, mainly I personally, I came to this country legally. We ran away from persecution in Iran after the Islamic regime came and took over. We came to this great country because it was the future for us and for our future family. This is not the city of angels that we grew up in.
Yeah.
We are not safe. We do not have a life as citizens, as business owners. And I'm wondering why Mr. Gascon smiles when everybody's attacking him and everybody's saying we are not safe in this city anymore. Is he pleased? Does it mean that he's accomplished what he was brought to do to this city? Because we know he was not voted. He did not win. We all voted for Jackie Lacey.
Okay, well, he did win. But we'll take the premise of her question, though. The premise of her question is something that most of your competitors on this stage, especially when we did the last debate, said that like safety was at like a 0. What do you say to people that, whether it's statistically or just feeling wise, that feel like the city is less safe, especially when it comes to things like retail theft or other aspects of that? Mr. Gascon.
Look, first of all, I feel really bad that you feel unsafe. And I can only tell you that as someone that has been involved in seeking public safety for nearly 4 decades, as someone that has been a police officer in the streets, has been a sergeant, a lieutenant, all the way up to the rank of chief of police and then district attorney, I can tell you that it bothers me when we have members of our community that feel unsafe, because that illustrates to me that, there's work that needs to be done. Unlike other people in the stage here, I understand the system from one end to the other. True, and you hear often that I have not prosecuted a case, and that is true. But I have been a police officer and have ran the district attorney's office as well. I understand systems in ways that very few people do. And I can tell you unequivocally that I'm very committed to your safety and that of your family, and I will continue to do the very best that I can in order to ensure that not only are we taking care of today's victims, but more importantly, we're taking care of future generations of victims. There are some ways that we have in this county and in this country are unparalleled by any other nation. And every time that somebody repeats an offense, they're victimizing others. When you look at most of the people that are harming people are also people that were harmed themselves. So when Mayor Villaraigosa made the introduction today, he talked about the need to be nuanced about our work. He talked about the need to understand crime, not simply as to a reflection of a particular act, but what are the drivers behind that? And I can tell you that I'm very committed, have been very committed to this for my life, and I will continue to do so.
right.
And hopefully one day we can make you feel safer.
Yes.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hopefully we're an undecided vote, would be especially great.
Does anyone in the front row have a question? Yeah. We appreciate the people who come and push it up to the front. By the way, if you're sitting in the back, there's plenty of seats if you guys want to grab them. Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Emma, and this question is you, Gascon. You took office December 7th, and I am one of those parents that your directives were in place, that one of your prosecutors called me and dropped 2 directives. My son was killed by a gang member, and you took that off the table. My son was killed with a parolee with a gun, and you took that off the table. I joined the recall because you messed with the wrong mother. My child was killed by a gang member, and you had more sympathy for that gang member than my child who was killed in front of my home. Can you explain to me, because I've been looking for you for 4 years. 4 years. Can you tell me how were you able to get rid of that gang enhancement and the parolee with the gun, and I'm safer today? How can you say that?
Thank you. We're so sorry for the loss of your son, and she's bringing up the issue of gang enhancements, which is, just by a raise of hands, how many of you think that there should be gang enhancements? And Mr. Gascon, you do not. Mr. Gascon, though, obviously this was a very emotional mother, and what is your response to her? And then we can bring up the issue of gang enhancements.
Look, I'm brokenhearted for your loss, okay? Yes, I am. But here is the thing that I think is important that we all look. We have prosecuted and we continue to prosecute cases in the office at very similar rates that we have for the last 10 years. Our conviction rates are very similar. Murderers are going to prison when they get convicted. But I also am very concerned about the issues of how do we provide for a sustainable safety in our community, not only now, but years to come. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We as a country and we as a community have been doing the same thing for generations. and we haven't gotten any better. We must evaluate the past, learn from the past, and move forward in a different direction to ensure that future generations of our community do not have to face the harms that you face and that so many other mothers face. And there is absolutely no evidence that enhancements have done the work. If they did, we would not have the problems that we have today. So I am very sorry for your loss.
Well, let's Ms. Ramirez, as the most veteran prosecutor up here, who's dealt with a lot of these things, your response on why you think that gang enhancements are important.
Gang enhancements are important because they accurately describe the violence that is involved in those cases and the need to send that person away for as long as the law will allow us. And when you take away enhancements, when you take away special circumstances, when you take away strike enhancements, then there's more likely the chance that that person will be paroled earlier. Now that we have youthful parole, we have elder parole, they're getting out anyway, and that's what happens. The other thing is the legislature has given us these laws to protect our public. We have to use them when appropriate. And Mr. Gascon has taken away our ability to use our discretion in evaluating the cases before us based on the evidence, based on who the criminal offender is, whether he's a violent criminal involved in gang activity over and over again. He has taken away our ability to do that. And that's why it matters. And it matters to mothers like this that don't feel that our office is giving the justice that her son's life deserves.
But is it, and Mr. McKinney, and then I'll go back to Mr. Gascon. Mr. McKinney.
All right, I want to ask Mr. Gascon a follow-up question to his last response. I pointed out earlier tonight that in 1992 and 1993, LA County suffered its highest homicide rates in its history, nearly 2,000 in each successive year. After that, the murder rate started to fall as the legislature and the voters introduced tough on crime laws. For example, in 1994, we got the 3 strikes law. Later, we got a big gun enhancement law. And the murder rate dropped year after year after year, right through the Great Recession of 2008 on. Even when unemployment hit record highs, the murder rate kept dropping and dropping until 2014 when it was all the way down to 508. That is true, that is fact, that you can look up. So my question, Mr. Gascon, when you say the definition of insanity is repeating something that didn't work, what are you talking about? You were an LAPD officer when the murder rates were nearly 2,000 a year, and you were here and watched those rates fall to a quarter of what they were. So obviously something was working if your definition of working means a safer community. Could you please respond to that?
What about the
Go ahead.
San Francisco?
Okay. Mr. I mean, why take away the discretion? Why not give the prosecutors the option, especially for the most extreme circumstances, including this?
So first of all, the discretion hasn't been taken away. There is a path for sometimes alleging enhancements, and we have, number one. Number two, I think it's important to look at murder rates not simply in the vacuum of one state, but you have to look at it nationally, because our trends of crime tend to be national trends. And we have seen the reduction in homicides throughout the nation, even in places where these enhancements were not used. And we have seen places where enhancements are regularly used. We have counties that are neighboring to us where the enhancements are always used, and yet the rates per capita when you have homicides are higher than they are in our community. I think we can oversimplify these issues, but when you look at the facts, when you look at what happened from the late 1970s through the 80s and beyond, you see a very different picture. Up until the late 1970s, we incarcerated at the same rates as most of the industrialized world, and we were rehabilitating people and we were safe. And then we had the crack epidemic, and then we had a surge in violence, and then we rightfully got scared.
And then there was an interesting development where we started to become more punitive. We incarcerated more and more people, most of them, by the way, poor people. And we incarcerated people at rates that were unprecedented to the point that our system went under receivership because we were forced to lower our incarceration rates.
Yes.
And we did that, and we continue to see crime going down. As a matter of fact, in 2011, we started to reduce the number of people in our prisons, and our homicide rates continue to go down, which clearly shows that the correlation between high levels of incarceration and safety are very tenuous, and when you generally look below the surface, there are many other factors at play.
Okay, so I'm going to get, because both of you really want to get in, and then it'll be everybody in your office on this, because it most affects you.
I want to get into,
And then we'll,
Which one do you want to go first?
John asked first, sorry.
So for all of you who don't know, that's Emma. And what George Gascon just said was a straight out lie. You may agree or disagree. You may agree or disagree with his policies, and I respect that. But you don't stand up here and straight up lie to everybody here in the audience. That is a lack of integrity. And so, when George Gascon took office, Eric knows this. He ordered all of us to remove allegations and enhancements on every single case. It wasn't racist. Ask Emma.
All right,
Let's call her Emma. Let's call her.
Let's all show some respect. Let's, thank you.
This right here.
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, we're not. Okay. It's true. We're not. Let's have some come on, guys. Okay, we got your point. We'll allow them. You should run for DA if you want to come up on the stage. Okay, so put your name forward and run for DA, all right? This is a forum for the people that are running for DA. We're not having a back and forth of screaming at each other. So let's have some respect. John and Tommy is John, it's rude. It's rude. We're not, okay, all right. Ma'am, guys, thank you. We're not backing the deck. These are the people that are running. You could have run too. All right. So guys, go here and show some respect.
I'll shut off all the mics.
There we go.
Here's the hardest part. Listen to me, guys. The hardest part of doing these events is time, and we're eating into it right now. We want to hear from the candidates. We've got about 1 minute. I think Eric was up.
I'm not done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not done. Thank you. Emma is a person of color. Her son was a person of color, and he was murdered. It's not racist when you're fighting for justice for individuals. He keeps going. Rude. I'm not done. So, keeps going. Hold on a minute.
What?
Anthony Avalos was tortured and murdered by his mom and her boyfriend. He ordered me to remove the special circumstance of intentional murder by torture. That's 100% fact. A little girl named Eternity, a 4-year-old girl who was African American, was tortured and murdered by her mom. He ordered me to remove strikes on that case. Eric knows that. He stood up and helped me on that case. He didn't look at the facts. He didn't look at the evidence. He didn't talk to the family members. He didn't talk to the police officers. He didn't talk to the prosecutors. He ordered us to remove them in all these cases. When children are tortured and murdered, when children are killed, it's our job as district attorneys to stand up and fight for them and make sure they get justice. And he didn't do that.
Eric, real quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna try to lower down the temperature a little. Okay. I think there's something that has to be understood. Since the great crime decline from 1994 to 2014, the life expectancy of African American males went up by almost 1 year, just because of the reduction of murder. Just because of the reduction of murder in the United States. It is too simple to say that 3 strikes and the gang allegation and higher sentencing reduced the murder rate, but it helped. That was part of the equation.
There are many things that we can do together as a community to make crime go down. Being targeted in the way that we prosecute crimes to make sure that the drivers of violence, when we look at violence, about 70% of violence in our city occurs in a very small percentage of neighborhoods. When we lower violence levels in those neighborhoods, you know who are the beneficiaries? Black men, primarily. Latinos, primarily. Because that's whose lives are actually saved when we do this.
All right.
Well, because there's stats. If anyone wants to look at the stats, there's plenty of good studies. So yes, there's an uneasy piece by okay, so whoever said that got cut off, so verifiable.
Thank you. So, we need to take a break, is that it? And
Yes, so the way I know you guys all have questions, there is no chance we'll be able to get to everyone's questions. We're going to hold over the next round of questions for the second hour. But guys, here's the thing. These events are free, right? How are they free? It's our sponsors. So what we like to do is in the middle of it, just to give everyone a break from the tension. Take 10 minutes, use the restroom, get a breather, get away from the lawyers. Whatever you got to do. Whatever you got to do. And do us a favor, patronize our sponsors. Guys, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll see you all back after the break, okay? All right.
Tying that into the Prop 47 question also, I think the key issue here is that we're running for DA. We're not running for state assembly. So we're going to use the laws that we have to keep the public safe. But most importantly is the tone that it sends. When you're sending messages like Prop 47, which are the opposite of what you're talking about in the New York law, it sends this generalized idea that we're focusing too much on criminals and coddling criminals versus the people that actually are being killed and are suffering in LA County. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to get away from this criminal-centric fortress of are we being completely XYZ to the nth degree for criminals and start focusing more on what about our victims? What about the people of LA? Are they safe? What about their mental health? And I think that's the key thing that the voters need to know is which candidate up here is going to be most likely to deliver that to them.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay, then we'll keep moving. Raise your hand if you think that bail works. Raise your hand. What? Money bail. Cash bail. Does cash bail work? Raise your hand if you don't think that cash bail works.
Well, it works to keep people in jail, yeah.
Okay, so let's get thoughts on this. Maybe Judge Archuleta, do you want to go first on this? Your thoughts on why you think cash bail works?
Cash bail works because the number one effect of cash bail is public safety, to return, to make sure the individual returns to the courts. When I was a DA, many of you in here know me as a DA and also as a judge, I imposed reasonable bail on these cases when it was asked for, because we would look at the background of the individual before us. I never knew anything about the financial wherewithal of the individual in front of me. I wanted to know if they were a serious and violent repeat offender. Did they use a weapon, particularly a gun? Did they inflict great bodily injury? Did they engage in hate crime activity? Were they a gang member? Had they successfully completed probation or parole? I believe that it's public safety issue number one that we start imposing reasonable bail in those cases where it's required. We cannot rely on the blanket policies of the current DA, and I'm going to utter his name because he can't defend himself now, George Gascon. A one-size-fits-all justice program does not work for anybody in this room, and including him. So that's what we need to do, and yes, I'm a proponent of reasonable cash bail in appropriate cases.
Can we pass the mic to Mr. Siddall, because he had a different take. I'm curious on what you think.
So the question was, does it work? And I don't think it works. I don't think it's the best system. I think it is required under California law, and if you don't ask for it, then people get out. But what I would do is, and I've written an article on this very issue, what I would do is, if I were creating the law as to how you would detain people in California, I would go to the federal system, which was created in 1986, and it basically presumes certain types of felonies to be detainable. For example, violent felonies, you should automatically get detention. You should not be allowed to be released, even if you have the money and the wherewithal to get it. And then everything else comes into a gray area where there is some discussion about whether you are a threat to the community or you're a threat to, or you're a public safety risk or your flight risk. And that would be the ideal system. That's not the system that we have in California. That's not the system that was created by our state constitution. Most people, think of bail as something that is for the prosecution. Bail is actually something that was developed for the defendant so that the defendant could get out of custody. I do not agree that somehow that a $2 million bail on a multimillionaire who is a murderer somehow protects the community.
Yeah, Mr. McKinney, and then, yeah.
Yes, I think bail is imperfect, but it does work better than OR releases in most cases. A study was done on OR releases versus bail by Yolo County District Attorney Jeff Riesig, and the study showed that there is a much higher recidivism rate for people who get out on their own recognizance versus people who get out on bail. And the reason for that, if you think about it, is this. People who have access to capital tend to be a little bit more responsible, tend to have jobs, tend to have homes, tend to follow the rules.
So there's a two-tier system.
Let me finish, please.
All right, just let me respond.
Let me finish, please. It's also true that once you put up some collateral, you're more likely to follow the rules because you have something more at stake. Now, it's imperfect because it's over and under inclusive on the issue of risk. People who have access to capital can still be dangerous. People who don't have access to capital may not be dangerous. So, if we're going to have the system that we currently have, first of all, we should have 24-hour arraignment courts so we don't have cite and release and book and release on the streets. People should be brought before a judge. 1. 2, we need a meaningful risk assessment tool that will assess the risk of each person that can be universally applied through all of our courts in the county. And then 3, if we're going to keep bail, then reasonable bail should be set.
Yes.
All right, well, first of all, there's a two-tier system. If you can afford bail, then you're out. And I walk into court and the DA, the first thing they say, is your client out or in? Because if they're out, they're going to get a probation sentence often. And if they're in, they're just going to continue the case. So they have, maybe a year in custody, and then they're going to take a prison sentence because they almost done their time. It's a two-tier system. Innocent people, my clients all the time, they plead guilty to crimes they didn't commit because they can't get out on bail. The Supreme Court has said that they have to take into account ability to pay. Well, guess what? Everyone who's in jail, they don't have the ability to pay or they'd pay it.
Sure. Okay, so this is where we're going to wrap things up with this. It is going to be one sentence. You each get one sentence to make your pitch. And if you go over one sentence, I'll start talking. So we'll go since we went the other way this way, let's start with you, and let's do one sentence pitch, your closing argument, why everybody here should vote for you.
If you're truly for justice and want to vote your conscience, vote for me. I'm the guy.
Great.
2 sentences. Oh, I had a
Semicolon.
semicolon.
Yeah. Bobcat.
Thank you, everybody. I represent the boldest change in 2024 that voters can make to tell criminals directly that playtime's over. I also have a heart for LA, and what drives me is a passion to bring back the LA District Attorney's Office to number 1. SDNY
Thank you.
and DA's office have nothing on
That's
LA.
a sentence. Okay. Judge Milton.
I pledge to you that I will get that district attorney's office back to its core mission, which is public safety. You can count on it.
Thank you. Judge Archuleta.
I think they were talking to me. Justice for victims is justice for all. I will beat George Gascon. I'm going to be your next DA.
Thank you. Judge Mitchell.
We love you too.
2 words define my legal career, my entire life. Fairness and justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ramirez.
I am the strong leader that the district attorney's office needs now that will ensure the public safety and build our office to one that really cares about the community and its members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McKinney.
My personal life before becoming a DA and my remarkable record of success as a prosecutor has prepared me to lead the district attorney's office, and 64.7% of the men and women who work there today agree with that statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siddall.
Thank you. We're going to build a modern, balanced district attorney's office that actually is going to institute reform, but that reform is going to be sustainable and it's going to keep you safe, not just tomorrow, but in the next 10 years.
Mr. Tommy.
Hope that we can bring public safety back to Los Angeles for all of us.
Mr. Hochman.
Not just hope, but I actually will bring public safety back when I become district attorney, because I will do three things, colon.
Okay.
The first one will be that I will restore the trust that a DA has with his fellow prosecutors.
There we go. Okay.
Comma.
Okay.
The second thing is I will reinvigorate the partnership with law enforcement.
Yeah.
And the third is I will stand for victims.
Okay. I'm standing for ending this thing. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it.
Everyone hang on one second. A couple of final things before we just let this one go. First off, thank you to Alex for taking care of the moderating. Thank you for Nina Hojat as well for taking care of the moderating. While everyone is still here, something important that applies to what happened tonight, and while the news media is still here, I just want to make this point clear. There was a miscommunication between our office and some of the candidates, and some of the candidates had obligations that started after 8 p.m., and as a result, some had to leave, some could stay, got a little complicated. I don't want anyone, hang on, believe it or not, I spoke with them personally. I don't want anyone, hang on, audience, remain an audience. I don't want anyone to think that anyone dodged questions. No one dodged questions here. They left the questions from this room and they're going to another room to take questions there. So I just want to make that clear. That being said, excellent event. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for participating in democracy. By the way, whoever's going to be around, we're all going to be in the foyer out here. We have a minimum spend, so feel free to drink as many drinks as you like, guys. Thank you so much for coming tonight.